Never would I have imagined that an expanded episode of Adam Ruins Everything would inspire me to help mold an updated point of view and to increase my desire to publish content that focused on what I would truly say could save the political and economic system in which we currently reside. It is imperative to understand that all of the ultra elite, yes, all of them achieve their success through avoiding taxes, exploiting resources, and lobbying. Of course, there are more factors than those three simple concepts that play into the state of our country, but those three things are the primary drivers of our current socio-economic climate. This piece is going to start off with something that is very important to me, a political disclaimer. The goal is for all viewers to understand I am not a Republican, nor am I a Democrat. I do not stand for either of the major political parties, as I am aware enough to understand that they are all part of the same political machine. Each party dresses itself to look different from the other, just enough to rally their base and keep us distracted with the idea that we can be a part of the winning side. Inherently, this idea is flawed. There shouldn't be sides. We shouldn't be fighting to take the legs out from under our opponents in the political arena. We, the people, should be demanding that all politicians fight for what's right for the entire populace of the country as a whole. Our system should be looking out for all of us, not just those loyal to the party that's in power. This idea, though, is how the duopoly thrives. They pit us against one another, and while we are enthralled in our quarrels, they solidify their position as the ruling class and ensure their own fortunes and self-interest are protected. The reformation of the tax system is absolutely necessary if we can ever hope to progress as a society and as a nation from where we are at this point. A study by White House economists released on September 23rd of 2021 found that the 400 wealthiest U.S. families paid an average income tax rate of just 8.2% from 2010 to 2018. That study goes on to explain how that's possible. The main reason the top 400 pay such a low tax rate is that a very large share of their income is in the form of unrealized capital gains, meaning the appreciation in the value of their assets, which are mostly stocks and other business interests. A tax code feature known as stepped-up basis means unrealized gain on an asset is never subject to income tax if the asset is not sold during the owner's lifetime. As a result, much of the income of the wealthiest families in the country never appears on their income tax returns, preserving wealth. Average families ranging from single to sizes 4 across income spectrums from $40,000 to $200,000 pay taxes somewhere in the range of 8.6% and 14.6%. Now, there are a lot of factors that determine exactly where families fall within that range, but if you remember what was mentioned earlier, the average top 400 tax rate was 8.2%. So that's less than a medium income family of 4. The discrepancy that exists between these numbers is truly insane, and the fact that no one seems concerned about it is most certainly troubling. Although I should say there are many concerned about it, just not enough people in the right positions to do something. There is an ultra important illustration that needs to be painted here, though. While there is no true benefit to taxing unrealized capital gains, there is benefit to ensuring that the elite are held accountable to pay their income taxes at a higher rate than the average household. Forming a new tax code to define the way unrealized capital gains are taxed has broad implications, and I think that we all need to understand what that really means. Billionaires should absolutely be paying their fair share of taxes. With the tax codes the way that they are now, it is nearly impossible for that to happen, and that is the real reason that we need change. There have been a lot of reports and analysis that seems to point to unrealized capital gains as the big culprit, and that just simply isn't true. So let's work from an example. You purchase $10,000 worth of stock. You want to invest and save for retirement. You're being financially responsible. Excitement strikes when you see that the value of the stock you purchased increased to $11,000. You haven't sold that stock, so you don't actually have an extra $1,000 in your pocket, but you know that when you do sell your assets, you'll receive that profit minus the tax that you owe for increasing that investment. Now, let's use that same example, but you support taxing unrealized capital gains. In that case, you have $11,000 worth of stock. Not money, not cash, not liquidity, stock. Under the system, you would be taxed on that portion of the $1,000 that you haven't even cashed in yet. So you now owe tax liability on money that isn't even physically in your possession. That doesn't sound like any kind of success. Paying taxes on money that doesn't even exist anywhere except arbitrarily in an investment account. As previously stated, paying taxes on unrealized capital gains isn't the answer. If a billionaire has investments in stock that increase in value from $1 billion to $2 billion, but none of that stock was ever sold, they don't actually have that $2 billion in their possession. It's still just arbitrary numbers in an investment portfolio until it's sold. That's the truth of the matter. But the great news is that there are other ways that we can seek reform without implementing sweeping changes to capital gains that could negatively affect average investors. The first thing that needs to happen is that the codes need revision to focus on eliminating preferential treatment of the ultra wealthy when it comes to taxable income. For those same families discussed earlier, the top tax rate should be increased as well. Shift the focus to taxing dividends as opposed to taxing capital gains. Dividends are taxed at a much different rate than income is, especially recently. And in the case of high volume and high wealth individuals, this can cause vast chasms between classes. Adjust the corporate tax rates. Allow these massive conglomerates to foot the bill for necessary tax funding. Revise the tax break and tax credit system. When corporations desire to pay less taxes, have an approved list of public works or projects that they can contribute towards. Contributions are made towards improving that public infrastructure and the like. Then allow the businesses and corporations to pay less taxes proportionately to how much they publicly reinvest. There are solutions out there. We just need to work together to create them. Secondly, the world needs to take a long look in the mirror. All of the system's problems don't just stem from class or wealth gaps, albeit a problem. When we are angry that Patagonia has led a massive PR stunt in order to make the masses believe they have ceded control of their company, stop buying their products. If you aren't happy with the way that companies are handling transfer of shares or the ownership changes, stop shopping. If you're frustrated because Jeff Bezos isn't paying a dime of federal income taxes, stop using Amazon and supporting his amassing of wealth. If you can't stand the fact that Bill Gates, who befriended elite pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, is raking in profits and spewing PR propaganda about how philanthropic he is, don't support his software or gaming consoles. If we as a nation expect and demand corporate responsibility and impose financial consequences by ceasing use of products and services when expectations aren't met, they will be forced to comply or fail. We, the people, hold that power. This all sounds much easier than it actually is, but that doesn't mean that it isn't possible. If you loathe Walmart because of the repercussions it has on the small towns that it moves into, stop shopping there. The problem with this system is that everyone is out for themselves. We base our consumerism on personal benefit. We shop at mega stores because they can meet all of our demands in a single trip, as well as costing us less money to buy. If you don't want small business to fail, you have to make a conscious decision to stop shopping conveniently. Make more trips to smaller retailers, which might be less accessible, but that will support growth of the community. This problem stems much further beyond the average consumer, however. There is plenty of blame to go around. The ultra-rich are trying to preserve their wealth and form dynasties for their families. The politicians below them that take the kickbacks and earmarks and pork spending and bend the will of the lobbyists who support the ultra-rich are trying to establish their own wealth and make a career of their political pandering. Next, lower down the line, you run into the rich, who desire nothing more than to find a way to get to the next level. And then the middle class, who want to be wealthy. And then the poor, who want to be middle class. The cycle is perpetual and brutal. The only way to fix those societal defects are through a massive change in leadership and mindset. So finally, we need to focus on the political system. Term limits all around. Every single elected official, term limit. No more career politicians, ever. Then shift focus to the lobbyists. They're the ones behind the scenes advocating for pork and wasteful spending, kickbacks, tax breaks, etc. Make it illegal for corporations or special interests to directly lobby politicians. Term limits will drastically reduce that influence first, but stepping in to change the lobbying process can cut the head off of the snake completely. Add caps to both campaign donations and maximum overall funding. Limit the amount that each party is allowed to have in a given cycle. Don't allow excessive contributions in the first place, and it won't pull the strings of the election from above. Finally, as a populace, let's teach each other and our future generations that money itself isn't evil, but profiting off of exploitation and underhandedness is. Don't just embrace personal riches above everything else. Of course, it's important that there be reward for personal success and drive, but at a certain point, we all need to understand that enough is enough. So teach understanding that all corporations don't have to be inherently evil, and then reinforce expectations of moral and social responsibility. We need to construct a system that creates total equity. Equality isn't enough. The only way to reassemble all these broken pieces is for everyone to start picking them up one at a time. We have to work together. We need to discuss. We need to communicate. We need to find some common ground. We need to cast out the system that has led us down this path. We need reform. We need action. Think freely, discuss openly.